The cold silence of deep space stretched endlessly around Captain Ray Carter's small cargo ship. He was alone, running routine repairs near an asteroid field far from any trade route. The hum of the engine and the faint beeping of his tools were the only sounds in the cockpit. Ray preferred it that way, quiet, predictable, no surprises, but the universe rarely cared for what he preferred. A sudden blip appeared on his scanner. It was faint, weak, almost lost in the static. Ray frowned and adjusted the frequency. The signal cleared just enough for him to see it was an emergency distress beacon. Someone out there was in trouble. The coordinates placed the signal deep inside the asteroid belt, a dangerous place for any ship to be stranded. Ray hesitated. Going in could mean damage to his own ship or worse. But leaving someone to die in space wasn't something he could live with. With a sigh, he powered up his thrusters and turned toward the source. As his ship slipped into the shadow of the massive rocks, his sensors picked up a small object tumbling slowly. It wasn't a ship. It was an escape pod. Scorched and battered, the beacon light blinked weakly. Like the heartbeat of someone fading away, Ray maneuvered closer, matching the pod's slow spin. The front window of the pod was cracked, but he could see a shape inside. He activated the docking clamps and pulled it into his cargo bay. The metal hatch of the pod hissed as it opened, releasing a thin mist of frozen air. Ray stepped forward and looked inside. There, curled up and barely moving, was a young alien girl. Her skin was pale, with faint glowing lines tracing patterns along her arms and neck. Her clothes were torn, and there were bruises across her face. Her eyes flickered open for just a moment. They were the color of molten gold. Shining in the dim light, her voice was barely a whisper. "Promise me. You'll never tell." Ray leaned closer. "Never tell what?" he asked, but her head fell to the side as she lost consciousness. A chill ran down Ray's spine. It wasn't just the cold air from the pod. Something about her words felt like more than a plea. It felt like a warning. He checked her vitals with his med scanner. She was alive but weak, dehydrated, and injured. Ray carried her to the small medical bed in his ship. As he worked to stabilize her, his mind kept replaying those words. "Promise me you'll never tell." Tell who? Tell about what? And why did it sound like knowing her secret could get him killed? Outside, the asteroid belt shifted slowly. Rocks the size of cities floated silently past his ship. Ray knew he couldn't stay here for long. The currents of the asteroid field would eventually crush his vessel if he lingered. He needed to move, but where? Taking her to the nearest station was the obvious choice, but something told him that would be a mistake. She didn't just fear dying, she feared being found, and if she was hiding from someone, they might already be looking for her. If they tracked her here, they'd find him too. Ray checked the scanners again. The distress signal had stopped. The pod was now completely silent, but just beyond the edge of the asteroid belt, he spotted faint energy signatures. Not random, they were moving with purpose. Someone else was searching this area. He cursed it under his breath and shut down all external lights. The last thing he needed was to be seen. His cargo was no longer just freight. It was a living, breathing target. And judging by those approaching signals, it was a target worth killing for. Ray strapped into the pilot's chair and slowly guided the ship deeper into the belt. The asteroid shadows swallowed them whole. Behind him, the girl lay unconscious, unaware of the danger closing in. Ray didn't know who she was or what secret she carried, but he knew one thing for certain: if he kept her aboard, his life was about to get a lot more complicated. The scanner beeped again, louder this time. The energy signatures were closer, moving faster. Ray's hands tightened on the controls. He had a choice: stay hidden and hope they passed, or make a run for it. Either way, the promise she had forced on him already felt like a chain around his neck. The girl stirred slightly, murmuring in her sleep. Ray caught one word, a name, but it was in a language he didn't recognize. A sudden flash of golden light flickered across the markings on her skin. Ray's breath caught. Whatever she wasn't ordinary. And whoever was hunting her was getting closer by the second. Asterisk, the cold darkness of the asteroid belt wrapped around Ray's ship like a heavy blanket. Only the dim glow of the control panel lit his face. He kept his hands steady on the controls, guiding the vessel through narrow gaps between spinning rocks. Outside, massive shadows passed by, some so close they scraped the hull with a low metallic groan. Behind him, the alien girl lay silent in the medbed. Her breathing was steady now, but her glowing markings pulsed faintly, almost like they were alive every time the light brightened. Ray's instincts told him it was more than just a strange skin pattern. It was a signal, maybe not one he could read, but one someone else could, if that was true. Hiding here wouldn't be enough. Scanner beeped again, sharper this time. Ray zoomed in on the display. The faint energy signatures from before had multiplied. Now there were 5 separate contacts moving through the belt. They were using some kind of cloaking tech, only showing up as faint ripples in space. Whoever they were good at hiding, too good. Ray cut his engines to minimal power, letting the ship drift silently. He knew the trick. The less energy he used, the harder it would be to detect him, but it also meant he had less control. One wrong move and the ship could spin into a floating mountain of rock. Game over. He turned his head slightly when he heard a soft voice. "She's close," the alien girl murmured without opening her eyes. Ray frowned. "Who's close?" he whispered. Her eyelids fluttered, and for a moment, her golden eyes locked on him. "They can smell the light," she said weakly, before slipping back into unconsciousness. A chill ran down Ray's spine. Smell the light? What did that even mean? But when he looked back at her glowing markings, it made a terrifying kind of sense. If her body was giving off some unique energy, the hunters didn't need normal scanners to find her. They could just follow the pulse, one of the contacts. On his scanner suddenly vanished. Ray froze. He knew this move, splitting their formation, circling around, cutting off escape routes. The hunters were closing the trap. He powered up the ship's stealth mode, dimming even the life support readouts. The cabin fell into a deeper darkness. The silence was so complete, Ray could hear his own heartbeat. Then, a faint tapping sound echoed through the hull. It was light, almost delicate, but too deliberate to be random debris. Ray's blood ran cold. Something, or someone, was on the outside of his ship. He reached for the sidearm under his console. The tapping stopped. Seconds later, a low, metallic scrape dragged across the hull, like claws testing the metal. Ray knew better than to turn on external cameras. If the hunters had visual sensors, it would give away his position. Suddenly, the girl gasped loudly, her body arching as the markings on her skin flared with a brilliant golden light. The scanner went crazy, warning beeps filling the cockpit. Ray swore and slammed the thrusters, blasting them forward through the asteroid maze. The hunters would know exactly where they were now, but staying still was no longer an option. Chunks of rock spun past as he dodged left, then rolled hard right. Behind him, faint flashes lit the darkness, weapons fire. The blasts missed by meters, shattering nearby asteroids into glittering clouds of debris. Ray weaved through the chaos, but the hunters stayed close. They moved like predators who had chased prey 1,000 times before. The alien girl's voice came again, stronger this time. "There's a way out," she said. Ray didn't look back. His eyes locked on the navigation readouts. "Where?" he demanded, her hand, trembling, pointed to a gap in the asteroids. One Ray would have dismissed instantly. It was too small, too unstable. But her golden eyes glowed with certainty. Ray trusted his instincts, and for some reason, in this moment, his instincts told him to trust her. He angled the ship toward the narrow gap. The hunters fired again, but the shots slammed into the rocks instead. Ray squeezed through the opening, scraping the hull but making it through. On the other side, the asteroid field thinned, revealing a swirling patch of green and gold light in the distance. It wasn't on any of his charts. "What is that?" Ray asked. "A fold in the dark," the girl whispered. Take us in. They can't follow there. Ray hesitated only a moment before pushing the throttle. The ship surged toward the strange glowing rift. Behind them, the hunters slowed. Holding their distance, it was like they were afraid to cross that invisible line. As the ship entered the shimmering veil, Ray felt the controls vibrate under his hands. The stars outstretched and twisted into long ribbons of light. His vision swam, but then, silence. The scanner went blank. The hunters were gone. Ray exhaled slowly, his grip loosening on the controls. He turned to the girl. Her eyes were closed again, but a faint smile touched her lips. "You kept your promise," she murmured. Ray didn't know how long that promise would keep them safe, but deep inside, he knew the hunt was far from over. The green and gold light faded around them. Ray's ship drifted into a quiet, empty stretch of space. The scanners were clear, no sign of the hunters. For the first time in hours, he allowed himself to breathe normally. The alien girl was awake. Now sitting on the edge of the med bed, she watched him with those molten gold eyes. "Where are we?" she asked softly. Ray shrugged. "No idea, but we're safe for now." She looked around the cockpit, her gaze lingering on the darkened controls. "You took us through a fold," she said, almost to herself. Ray frowned. "That thing back there? I've never seen anything like it." "That's because it's not supposed to be there," she replied. Her words carried a weight he didn't understand, but before he could ask, she stood and walked slowly toward the viewing window. Her glowing markings shimmered faintly in the dim light. "They will find us again," she said quietly. "They always do." Ray crossed his arms. "All right, Lyra. That's your name, right? I've risked my ship and my life to save you. Now you're going to tell me what's going on." She didn't turn around. Instead, she placed her hand on the glass, staring out at the empty stars. "There are things you shouldn't know," she murmured. "Things that will destroy you if you learn them." Ray's patience was thinning. "I'm already involved. Those ships weren't out there for fun. They were hunting you. And from the way you talk, they won't stop. So either tell me the truth, or I dump you at the next station." That made her turn. Her golden eyes burned brighter. "You wouldn't make it to the next station," she said flatly. Ray narrowed his eyes. "Is that a threat?" "No," she said, shaking her head. "It's a warning." She walked closer, the light from her markings casting faint patterns on the walls. "My family. We were the keepers of something," she began slowly. "It's old, older than any empire in this galaxy. We were taught to guard it, never to use it." Ray's curiosity sharpened. "What is it? Some kind of weapon?" Her lips pressed into a thin line. "In the wrong hands, it can burn entire worlds to ash. In the right hands, it can make them disappear without a trace." Ray's stomach tightened. "That sounds like a weapon to me. It's not just a weapon," she said, her voice lowering. "It's alive." That made him pause. "Alive? You mean, like artificial intelligence?" Lyra shook her head. "No, it's not a machine. It's something that existed before machines. It chooses who can command it, and once it chooses, there is no undoing it." Ray studied her for a long moment. The pieces began to fit together in his mind. "They're chasing you because it chose you," he guessed. Her silence was enough of an answer. "And if you die, whoever kills you takes control." She hesitated. "No," she said quietly. "If I die, it wakes." The weight of those words hit him like a punch. "You're telling me if you die, this thing will just go off on its own?" "Yes," she whispered, "and it will destroy everything it touches until there's nothing left." Ray turned back to the controls, trying to process. "You should have told me sooner," he muttered. Her voice came from behind him, sharp. "And what would you have done? Turned me in? Sold me to the highest bidder? I've seen what humans do when they smell power." He didn't answer because deep down, he knew she wasn't entirely wrong. The galaxy was full of people who would kill without hesitation for what she carried, and now so was he. The ship's console beeped softly. Not an alarm, just a quiet reminder that they were low on fuel. Ray sighed. "We'll have to stop soon," he said. Her golden eyes darkened. "Then choose carefully." She replied, "Because the moment we land, they'll be waiting." Ray gave a small, humorless smile. "You said they always find you. They don't find me," she corrected. "They follow the light." She turned away, her glowing markings dimming until they were almost invisible. For a moment, she looked less like a dangerous secret and more like a tired girl. But Ray knew better. She wasn't just a passenger. She was the fuse to something far bigger than either of them. And sooner or later, that fuse would burn down. Asterisk, the fuel gauge glowed red on the console. Ray's ship drifted into the orbit of a small, uncharted moon. Its cracked surface shimmered faintly with frozen gases. To anyone else, it would look like a dead place. But to Ray, it was a temporary hiding spot. He cut the engines and let the ship coast behind a jagged ridge. The moon's shadows swallowed them whole. Lyra sat quietly in the co-pilot seat, her golden eyes scanning the emptiness beyond the glass. Ray glanced at her glowing markings. They were dim again, almost gone. "Trying to hide your light?" he asked. She didn't look at him. "If they can't see it, they can't follow it," she said simply. Ray nodded. "Let's hope that works." For a few minutes, silence filled the cabin. Only the faint hum of life support kept them company. Ray began to think maybe they had a chance. Then the scanner lit up with a sharp, repeating ping, multiple contacts, moving fast. "They found us," Ray muttered under his breath. Lyra's eyes narrowed. "They never stopped looking," she replied. Outside, streaks of light appeared as enemy ships broke through the darkness. Their sleek black hulls reflected no stars. Predator ships, built for one purpose. Ray powered the engines and pushed the ship into a dive. The moon's cracked surface rushed beneath them. Laser fire sliced through the air behind them, missing. By meters, chunks of frozen rock exploded, sending glittering shards across the void. Lyra's hand gripped the edge of her seat. "Faster," she urged. "I'm already pushing her to the limit," Ray said through clenched teeth. One of the hunter ships dropped in front of them, blocking the escape path. Ray rolled hard to the right, skimming dangerously close to the moon's surface. The hull shuddered under the strain. In the corner of his eye, he saw Lyra's markings flicker. "Don't do it," she whispered to herself. Ray shot her a quick look. "Don't." "Do what?" But she didn't answer. Instead, her eyes glowed brighter, and suddenly, the space ahead rippled like heat waves. Ray didn't know what he was looking at, but when he steered into the ripple, the hunter ship ahead vanished from the scanner. It was still there. He could feel it, but his ship had passed right through its targeting field without being hit. He stared at Lyra. "What did you just do?" Her lips pressed into a thin line. "Something I promised never to use." The hunters regrouped, closing in from all sides. Ray swerved between two rising cliffs of ice. The enemy ships followed, firing in bursts that lit the moon's surface. In flashes of red, a direct hit grazed the side of Ray's ship. Alarms blared. "Warning of hull breaches in the aft section. Seal it off." Ray shouted. Lyra was already at the control panel, her fingers moving quickly over unfamiliar symbols. The alarm stopped. Ray blinked. "How did you?" "Later," she cut him off. "Fly." They burst out from the ice cliffs and into open space, but the hunters weren't far behind. A massive ship loomed in the distance, bigger than all the others combined. It wasn't chasing. It was waiting. The blockade ship. Ray's heart sank. "There's no way past that," he muttered. Lyra looked at him, her expression unreadable. "There is one way," she said, "but it will hurt." Before Ray could ask, she stepped to the center of the cabin. Her markings flared so brightly it filled the room with golden light. The air seemed to vibrate. Ray's vision blurred. His ears rang, and then silence when his sight cleared. The massive blockade ship was behind them. They were drifting in empty space again, far beyond the moon. Ray's hands trembled. "On the controls, what just happened?" "I moved us," she said simply. Ray stared at her. "That's not moving." That's something else entirely. Her eyes dimmed. It's part of the bond, she admitted. The thing I'm connected to. It can bend space for the one it chooses, but every time I do it, it draws attention. Ray's stomach turned. So, they'll know exactly where we are now. She nodded. And they'll come faster. Ray rubbed his face. Then we can't stop again. No, she said. But there's somewhere we can go, a place even they can't reach. Her voice was steady, but Ray didn't miss the shadow of fear in her eyes. It wasn't the hunter she was afraid of. It was the place she was about to lead him to. The ship's engines hummed low as Ray followed Lyra's instructions. She sat in the co-pilot seat, her eyes fixed on the navigation screen. Her glowing markings were dim again, almost invisible. Ray didn't know if that meant she was resting or hiding. Either way, he didn't trust it. You keep telling me where to go, Ray said finally. But you never tell me why. Lyra didn't look at him. Because if I tell you, you'll change your mind, she replied. Ray's hands tightened. On the controls, I'm already risking everything for you. I deserve to know what I'm flying into. She turned to him slowly. Her golden eyes seemed to look right through him. Do you trust me? She asked. Ray let out a short, humorless laugh. I don't even know you. For a moment, she said nothing. Then she leaned back in her seat. That's fair, she admitted. But trust isn't about knowing everything. It's about believing. Someone won't betray you even when they could. Ray's jaw clenched. And what happens if I'm wrong? Her voice dropped lower. Then you'll die. Quickly, if you're lucky. The bluntness of her words made him glance at her. There was no threat in her tone, only truth, and that somehow made it worse. The navigation screen beeped. They were approaching a dark, empty sector with no stars in sight. Ray frowned. There's nothing here. That's what makes it safe, Lyra said. Her voice carried a strange mixture of certainty and dread. Ray hesitated. This place, is it some kind of base? Not a base, she replied. A graveyard. Ray didn't like the sound of that. Whose graveyard? Ships, she said softly. And people who came looking for them. Before he could ask more, the ship's sensors flickered. Static filled the display, then cleared. Dozens of massive, broken vessels drifted ahead. Their hulls were cracked. Their lights long dead. Some were old warships. Others were freighters like his. All of them lifeless. Ray's voice was low. What happened to them? They came here thinking they were safe, Lyra said. They weren't. Ray's grip on the controls tightened. You brought us here? This is your safe place? It's the only place where the hunters can't follow, she said firmly. Because they fear what's in here more than they want me. Her words didn't comfort him. If something could scare the hunters, it meant it could destroy them too. Ray turned toward her. You're asking me to trust you while you keep leading me into danger. Her gaze didn't waver. I'm asking you to choose whether you want to survive. The air in the cockpit felt heavier. Ray's mind flashed back to the first moment he saw her. Bruised. Weak, whispering a promise. He didn't even know why he agreed back then. Maybe it was instinct, maybe guilt, maybe something else. But now that promise felt like a trap. The console beeped sharply, movement detected. Ray's eyes scanned the display. Half a dozen small signatures, weaving through the graveyard. They weren't hunters. They moved slower, almost lazily. What are those? Ray asked. Lyra's expression darkened. Collectors. The word didn't sound dangerous, but the way she said it made his chest tighten. They take what's left, she explained. Not just metal and fuel, people too, if they find them. Ray's heart thudded harder. And you didn't think to mention them before. They're not supposed to be here, she said quickly. That means something's changing. The collectors drew closer, their ships shaped like jagged claws. Ray angled his vessel between two broken freighters, hiding in the shadows. One of the collector ships passed within meters of them. Through a cracked viewport, Ray saw the crew, pale-skinned, wearing masks with empty eyes. They didn't look alive, but they were definitely looking. Lyra's voice was barely a whisper. If they board us, don't fight, Ray turned to her sharply. That's your plan? Let them take us? No, she said. They'll take me. You'll survive. The words hit him like a cold blade. She meant it. She would give herself up to protect him. Ray's gut twisted. It would be the easy way out. Hand her over. End the chase, save his own skin. But he remembered the hunter's weapons. The way they kept coming. If they got her, the galaxy wouldn't just lose a girl, it would lose everything. The collector ship began to slow, turning toward them. Ray's pulse pounded in his ears. He looked at Lyra. Her golden eyes watched him without fear. This was the price of trust. Deciding whether to keep it or break it, Ray reached for the throttle. Hold on, he muttered. The engines roared to life. They shot forward into the graveyard, weaving between the drifting corpses of dead ships. Behind them, the collectors followed. Ray didn't know if they would escape, but he knew. One thing, he wasn't ready to give her up, not yet. Asterisk. The collector's ships fell behind as Ray's vessel broke free from the graveyard. The engines hummed steady again, but Ray's mind was far from calm. They couldn't keep running forever. Fuel was low, supplies were thinner, they needed help, and there was only one person Ray thought he could trust. Change in course, Ray muttered. Lyra glanced at him. Where are we going? To an old friend, Ray said. Name's Jace. We served together in the border wars. He owes me his life. Lyra didn't speak for a long moment. Finally, she said, people who owe you their life can still sell it back to someone else. Ray shook his head. Not Jace. He's different. Hours later, a small outpost came into view, floating above a barren rock. It wasn't on any official charts, but Ray knew it well. The station was patched together from old freighters and mining rigs, a hidden place for smugglers, wanderers, and those who preferred to live outside the law. Ray brought the ship into dock. Jace was already waiting at the airlock. A tall man with a scar running down his cheek and a grin that didn't quite reach his eyes. Ray Carter, he said, clapping Ray on the shoulder. Thought you were dead. Not yet, Ray replied with a faint smile. Jace's gaze shifted to Lyra. And who's this? He asked. Passenger, Ray said quickly. Jace's brow arched. Pretty passenger. Rare in your line of work. Lyra didn't react. But Ray caught the flicker of tension in her posture. Inside the station, the air smelled of metal and stale recycled oxygen. They sat in Jace's quarters, sharing a bottle of something strong. Jace leaned back in his chair. So, what trouble are you in? Ray hesitated. The kind that follows you across the galaxy, Jace chuckled. That explains why you came crawling to me, Ray smirked. You're the only one who hasn't tried to kill me. Yet, Jace said, grinning. But the grin didn't make Ray laugh while Ray stepped away to check his ship's refueling. Jace poured himself another drink. Lyra stood in the corner, silent, watching him. You don't trust me, Jace said without looking at her. I don't trust anyone, Lyra replied. Good, Jace said. Because you shouldn't. That was the first hint. The second came when Ray returned to find Jace's comms console quietly active. A faint transmission light blinked red. Calling someone? Ray asked casually. Jace smiled. Just a few old contacts. You've been gone a while. Figured I'd spread the word you're still alive. But something in his tone didn't sit right. Ray said nothing. Later, while Jace was gone, Ray checked the comm logs. The last call wasn't to an old friend. It was to an encrypted frequency used by bounty fleets. When Ray confronted him, Jace didn't even bother to deny it. Ray, you know what she's worth. Jace said, enough credits to buy a fleet. Enough to disappear forever. Ray's stomach twisted. She's not for sale. Jace's expression hardened. Everything's for sale. The sound of boots echoed in the corridor. Heavy, steady armed men approaching. Ray's hand went to his sidearm. Jace stepped back. Don't make this harder than it has to be. He said, they're already here. The airlock alarm blared. A squad of black-armored bounty hunters stormed in, weapons raised. Ray grabbed Lyra's arm and pulled her toward the ship's docking hatch. Blaster fire lit the corridor. Jace shouted something, but Ray didn't hear it over the chaos. They made it inside the ship just as one of the hunters grabbed Lyra's sleeve. The man's visor reflected her glowing markings, and for a second, his body froze. Then a violent shockwave of golden light blasted out from her skin, throwing him into the wall. Ray didn't stop to ask questions. He hit the launch controls. The docking clamps released, and the ship shot away from the station. In the rear camera feed, Ray saw Jace watching them go. No guilt, no regret, just calculating eyes. Lyra's voice was cold. "You were wrong about him." Ray didn't answer. The sting of betrayal was sharp enough already. Outside, the stars stretched ahead of them, but the transmission Jace sent would spread fast. Every hunter, collector, and pirate in the galaxy would now know exactly who they were chasing. And Ray knew this was no longer just about survival. It was about deciding how far he was willing to go to keep his promise. The stars blurred past as Ray's ship tore through empty space. Every sensor warning was red. Fuel was almost gone. The engines were overheated. And now an entire fleet was hunting them. Lyra sat in the co-pilot seat, silent, her eyes fixed. On the navigation screen, her glowing markings pulsed slowly, like a heartbeat. "They're closing in," Ray said. She didn't look at him. "They were always going to catch us," she replied softly. Ray's grip on the controls tightened. "I'm not giving you up, Lyra." Her gaze shifted to him then. The gold in her eyes was brighter than he had ever seen. "If you keep me, they'll kill you," she said. "If you give me up, they'll kill everything else." Ray met her stare. "I made a promise." The scanner beeped sharply. Multiple ships dropping out of warp ahead. Ray cursed. They were boxed in. Behind them, more hunters closed in. And from the left, a massive dreadnought emerged, its hull black as the void. "That's their flagship," Lyra said quietly. "They won't talk. They'll take me, and then it ends." Ray's voice was grim. "No, it doesn't end. Not while I'm alive." He pulled the ship into a hard dive, heading straight toward a crumbling asteroid station drifting nearby. It was barely holding together, its metal beams bent and twisted, but it was cover. The hunters followed, their weapons lighting up the dark. The station's corridors flashed past the cockpit windows as Ray weaved through broken walls. Laser blasts ripped chunks of metal free. Sparks filled the air. "Where's that trick you used before?" Ray shouted. Lyra's eyes darkened. "I can't keep bending space without." She stopped, biting back the rest. "Without what?" Ray demanded. "Without waking it," she whispered. Ray didn't know what she meant, but there was no time to ask. The dreadnought's weapons locked on. A single shot from that ship could tear them apart. They burst out of the far side of the station. The dreadnought loomed ahead. Its shadow swallowed their ship. Ray's mind raced. There was no way around, only through. He turned to Lyra. "You said it's alive," he said. "Can it fight?" She hesitated. "Yes, but if I let it fight, it will never stop." Ray's jaw clenched. "That's the choice, isn't it?" Her golden eyes shimmered. "You can give me to them, and you live," she said. "Or you can keep me, and together we'll burn a path through them, but we'll both be hunted until the end of time." Ray didn't look away. "I told you before. I'm not giving you up." She closed her eyes. Her glowing markings flared so bright they lit the entire cockpit. The air vibrated, the ship's metal groaning under the strain. Outside, the space around them rippled and twisted. The dreadnoughts. Massive cannons fired. The shots bent away, curving harmlessly into the void. A deep, resonant sound echoed in Ray's mind, not from the ship's speakers, but inside his head. Something ancient was awake. Through the glow, Lyra's voice was steady. "It knows you now," she said. "You've been marked." The hunters' ships closed in, but the golden energy expanded outward in a wave. When it touched them, their hulls cracked like glass, engines failed, weapons shattered, one by one. The enemy ships went dark, drifting powerless into the void. Ray could barely keep his eyes open. The light was blinding when it finally dimmed. The space ahead was empty. The dreadnought was gone. The hunters were gone. Only silence remained. Lyra slumped back in her seat, breathing hard. Ray stared at her. "What now?" he asked. She looked at him with an expression he couldn't read. "Now we run," she said. "Not from them, from what's inside me." Ray didn't know where they would go, or how long they had before the galaxy caught up to them again. But he knew one thing. He had made his choice, and whatever came next, he would face it with her. Because some promises weren't meant to be broken.